done something that no one else has ever done for PD area Boy Scouts. You'll find out what it is coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Service Center for the PD Area Council of the Boy Scouts. We're focused on service, and we're visiting with the immediate past president, Ed Saleeby Jr. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for being with us again. It was so exciting this morning to think we were here about almost 2 years ago now for the inaugural week of Carolina People, and you were with us and really helped orchestrate that. You and Jim Head were so instrumental getting the 14 other guests here for that taping when we used to do 3 guests a day, and now we're so blessed just to have the single guest, and couldn't think of anyone better to get in than yourself.
Well, thank you very much.
This is truly a treat, and to think of so many of the activities that happened during your 3 terms as president of the PD Area Council. Was that a first in the history of the council?
Now, to my knowledge, it's never been done before. It's not that I asked to be, I was asked, and I consider it quite an honor.
Yeah, well,
and we did an awful lot of things. We had a vision. I had a vision. Jim Head shared in that vision, and I said that I wouldn't take it the first time if we didn't make progress on certain things. And we've done quite a bit at this council. And this council is moving, it's growing. We've won many awards from national. I've won awards from national myself, and Jim Head's won awards, particularly in the marketing area. And so, you know, this council is not where it was several years ago.
Right. And had the council so large, I mean, the PD Area Council, at least 10 counties, serve in about a quarter of the geographic area of the state, from Chesterfield and Darlington counties, your home county, all the way down to Williamsburg and Horry County. I mean, it's a gigantic, over into Sumter County. How were you able to maintain that, traveling around, and your involvement throughout? I know obviously the Scout executive and the folks who actually work within the council are doing most of the traveling within the 4 districts. But of course yourself, as PD Area Council president, you had to be involved in fundraising activities all over the council.
Oh yes. When I was first approached, and the first thing I did, I was vice president of finance, which is just a nice way to say head of fundraising. And did that for 2 years, and then that really kicked off well. And so then they asked me, and they were asking me to be president, they being the council. And I said, well, if we'll do these certain things, you know, this is what I'd like for the council to do. And I finally agreed. And so I was on the board for 5 years, 2 years as vice president, 3 years as president.
Wow. Your roots run deep in the PD area, don't they?
No, boy, yes, born and raised here.
And your mom had a tie to Horry County, or maintains a tie to Horry County.
Oh yeah, she was born where the old hospital is, back way back on 10th Avenue, right behind Nye's Pharmacy on 501. When you go by, we go by there to the beach, to our beach house, and Nye's is still up and running.
Wow.
My grandmother used to take me down there with a little lady friends, buy me a Coca-Cola for a nickel, and some cookies when I was a kid. And this is just a short walk, and that's where my mother was born and raised. And they were originally both of my grandparents. She was a Jones, and my grandfather was a Calcutt. We're from Pamplico, in Florence County. So we're dotted out all over the PD.
Right, of course. And then you were born in Hartsville.
I was born in Hartsville. I was born in Hartsville. My mother and father got married in 50, and my father was already in the House of Representatives then.
Is that right?
Yeah. And he had already graduated from law school. He did. He's one of the few people. He does not have an associate's degree from USC, and he wanted to get to work. And so one day his grades were pretty good. Now this was when the class was only 35 people. And so he went to head lady in admissions and told her his name at law school and what his grades were, and she said, fine, you go find the dean, and if he okays it, you come on to law school with those grades. And they just assumed he didn't know she had to have an associate's degree. And, or that's what he said. And so he asked the dean about it, and the dean said sure. And so he got on in, and there weren't but 11 grades of high school back then. So he went on into law school, and he'd gone through his first year and then some before they found out he didn't have an associate's degree. But he was near the top of his class, and so there wasn't much to argue about.
You are kidding
us. So he got out at a very young age.
He had done no undergraduate training. I mean, you're saying he went through 11th grade and...
He'd done 11th grade, and he'd done 1 year undergraduate.
Okay.
And back then the rule was you had to have 2 years.
Right.
An associate, 2 year degree. But he had 1 year. But he didn't want to spend that other year, and he wanted to get right on into law school.
That is amazing. Now, did he, when he shared that with you early on, did he have some underpinnings? Was his, or any of his family, for instance, in the legal practice that encouraged him to look at that?
He had an uncle on his mother's side that had been an attorney, and Uncle Maxie. And after that, just 2 years as junior, my Uncle Ted, some people called him Thad, he went to law school. Now, his father was full Lebanese. He got off the boat about 1910. And then traditionally, you generally sent just the oldest child off to school.
Right. And
so they did that with my Uncle Tony. And he went to the Citadel, graduated, and came back and ran a men's store in Hartsville. But when Dad and the rest of them, Granddaddy, Eli, he wanted them all work in the store. It was called the Southern Candy Kitchen, which is still is the longest continuous operating business in Hartsville to this day.
Is that right? Southern,
in all of Darlington County.
The Southern Candy Kitchen.
The Southern Candy Kitchen. Made their own candy.
Is that right? Where's that located at?
Right in downtown Hartsville, right across from the Hartsville YMCA and Sunoco rents a part of the building there. And it's still there. And so I worked there as a kid, and Father grew up there. And that's been going on since, I think, 1914.
Is that right? 1914. It is the longest running business there in Darlington County.
Yes.
That is amazing. That's something I never knew. You know, I don't think oftentimes in the past when you've been with us, we've gone straight into scouting. And so I don't think I ever asked you your first childhood job. Was it there?
That was my first childhood job. I roasted peanuts, boiled peanuts. By that time, they quit making candy because it's too cheaper to buy it. New companies had come up.
Sure.
But my father had grown up making candy and all that. We did all that. Sold firecrackers and and I made sodas and dipped ice cream and all those things and sold the candy. It was a real fun job because you had people from all walks of life that came in, and then, it was really good training for me, or a good education, to see, executives from Sunoco come in, to farmers, and my grandfather's side of the farming family, to people that worked at the cotton mill, and people worked at the Coker store across the street. I mean, you literally saw people from every part of life come in there, and I think that gave me a good education as a lawyer in understanding different people and how they think and what makes them tick and what they've been through in their particular type of life.
I bet it did. That set the stage, seeing so many different folks come in and out of that.
It was a great experience.
That really would. You grew up with brothers and sisters, Dad?
I had two sisters. One is Kay. She's 3 years to the day younger than me. She lives in Columbia. She's a wonderful, wonderful young lady. She teaches the educationally handicapped. I think that's a much tougher job than mine. You have to have a lot of compassion and patience, for those special people. She's been doing that 20-something years in Columbia, and does a wonderful job at it. I'm very proud of her. And my sister Holly, who practices with me.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. She's about, I don't use the term baby sister because there's nothing baby about her at all. But she's 9 years my junior, and she has her own office in Columbia, but that office is affiliated to some extent with ours, and she comes to Hartsville, and she specializes in workman's compensation. Okay. She had represented both claimants and companies before, or insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And then she was appointed and was chairman of the South Carolina Workman's Compensation Commission for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And she still had some time left on the term, but she decided she wanted to get back into private practice. Right. So being a commissioner all those years, in particular the chief commissioner, that's her specialty. That's all she does. And it's that old saying, I think, Kentucky Fried Chicken, when you just do one thing, you do it right. That's right. That's her gig. She knows more about that than I would ever attempt to even know. Sure. So she's an attorney, and I have a son at Carolina that is in pre-law, and he's planning on going to law school and coming back to Hartsville. So great. That law firm now, is your father, who I've talked with and worked with on cases before. Brilliant man. Brilliant man. And gentleman. The law firm now has been going on 55 years. Is that right? Since the late 40s. Mm-hmm. Right at the turn of the half century. That's fantastic. That's right. So we keep the tradition going on. Has it always been Saleeby and Cox, or did your dad team up with Cox early on, or was that talk a little bit about the history of the firm? Yeah, Jim Cox, great guy, great outdoorsman, and a great attorney, and he was a mentor of mine, taught me a lot. Mm-hmm. My father started off as a sole practitioner. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting thing in the South, and this is a true story. Even though he did real well and grew up in Hartsville, there were just a few law firms in Hartsville, and he wanted to come back and work. And he went to one law firm, and they said, well, Ed, you did well in school, and you're a nice young man and all that. Well, him being half Lebanese, you have to remember, he's dark skinned, and he said, well, basically all two firms or three firms said you should go to Washington D.C. or Philadelphia where they accept somebody like you. Wow. And so he decided he didn't want to do that. He said no, and so he ended up going to work for free for Senator Spot Mazingo in Darlington, and he worked for 6 months there for free, and then because he was living at home, wasn't married, had no expenses really, and learned how to run an office, and came back and opened up his own office by himself. And he and another lawyer shared a secretary from. There was a senior in high school, and they did their own typing themselves, a lot of it, but had a secretary from. Our student from high school do a lot of their typing. Is that right? Yeah, one typewriter in the office. That's how he started. That's an amazing story, Ed. I was not aware of that. And now, of course, fortunately, you had the benefit of coming to practice with your dad coming out of law school. Did you spend a little time in another firm in a different city, or did you come straight back to Hartsville after law school? I came straight back after I took the bar. I was in a hurry to get out, and so I did it in 2.5 years as opposed to 3. I did pretty well. I'm not smart, but God bless me. And had a very good office in Columbia. But they had always wanted me to come back, and I'd always wanted me to come back because Hartsville was a nice place to raise a family and to live. And Columbia, I like Columbia. So it was a hard choice, but in the end, I've been able to be around my father all those years before he passed away. And of course, I'm being able to be around my mother. And if I hadn't come back, I wouldn't have met my wife, my late wife, who passed away last year. Which we had 3 great children. So think I made the right decision. I'm very happy where I am.
That you did. You've got to be. You've got to be. You mentioned your father and the fact, and I've got to get back to that real quick, Ed. We've got about 10 minutes. But you mentioned that he'd gotten into public service, was it in the late 40s, early 50s?
Like the late 40s.
So he served 40-plus years.
Yeah, he did. He served in 40, he started in 40, 49, he was elected. He was 8 years in the House,
Right.
a representative. Then he was 12 years on the board at the University of South Carolina. And then he had to resign from that when he ran for the Senate. And that was in 72, and that was for 30 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, basically since he got out of school,
That is
he was in
incredible.
public service.
That is incredible. What was that like for you growing up with you? Obviously, he must have been the only state senator, what, from Darlington County, or one of two maybe from the county? I mean, surely the only one from Hartsville.
Yeah. He, well, Spot Mazingo had been senator for a good number of years, 25, 28 years. So for 2 years, not 2 years, there were two senators for basically the last 50-something years.
Wow. That's incredible. That must have been very exciting growing up, having that interaction with the opportunity to get down to the state capitol. And
it was. And when he quit being in the House, and my Uncle Ted ran, and he was there for 10 years. And then he became Chief Highway Commissioner for the state. So it was fun times as a kid growing up around all that.
I'm sure. Let's talk a little bit about your practice, Ed. Of course, service is so much, when we think about the PD Area Council and your service, 3 terms as the president of the PD Area Council. I think you got a National President's Award 2, if not all 3 of those terms. I know in
Yes,
01 and 02. So you had a spectacular, along with some of the fundraising accomplishments that happened during your tenure, helping set the stage for Camp Coker to be in good shape for many, many years to come. But we think about the legal practice. There's so much that goes on there. Your practice, and Saleeby and Cox, or you in particular, Ed, what's your primary focus?
Criminal defense, and I do a lot of plaintiff practice, and officer torts is just a nice word for saying wreck cases, but in personal injury, things such as that. I like to be in the courtroom. I think it's fun. It's not for everybody. It's not for the timid, but I have a good time doing it.
You know, when we think about criminal defense work, someone made me think about that earlier this morning as I was driving up to meet you. When you've got, with all the years of experience you've got in the courtroom and obviously working on the criminal defense side, what happens when you have a client that just will not follow the advice that you're providing?
Well, I have an agreement with my clients when they come in that if they do not, follow, my instructions, then I'm really not doing them any good. It's sort of like going to the doctor and not taking the medicine that he prescribes for you. And there's that old saying that I don't remember who came up with it, he who has himself for a lawyer hath a fool for a client. And so I will actually, sometimes we can voluntarily do it, but other times if they just won't take my advice, I will, and I have done this a number of times, I will return their fee, go to the court, and ask to be relieved, and let the client have another choosing.
Are you doing primarily federal or state criminal defense work?
Well, there are more state cases,
okay.
So we do more than that. And I don't do it just in Darlington County. I was a founder of what we call the South Carolina Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, and that's for people that specialize in the criminal defense. And many people say, well, how do you defend this person and that person? Well, in reality, probably 95% of our clients is a plea of some sort, and you work out the best plea that you can. The others, I'm a great advocate, and people say, well, if you know somebody's lying, I said, well, I don't. Like, it's not ethical to put somebody in. I tell them, if you've got problems, I can't put you on the stand and let you lie. No one will lie. And so I utilize a polygraph a lot.
Is that right?
A private polygraph on clients that I have some doubt about. And if that shows them clear up, you know, I have no problem with them. I take them to trial.
Huh. That's fascinating. You use a private polygraph test on a regular basis.
On a regular basis.
That is fascinating. How many other folks within that South Carolina Criminal Defense Attorneys Association or criminal defense attorneys use that on a regular basis, Ed? Is that pretty common?
No, a few others.
Yeah.
A few others, but I probably do it more than anybody else. But I want to be sure in my mind that I'm doing the right thing. And, of course, that's not admissible in the court. And I wish I could go to the jury and say, hey, y'all, here you passed this polygraph test and scored real well on it. But it is a machine, and any machine, you know, is not 100%, so it's not admissible either way in court.
We've got 5 minutes, and I remember in August of 2002, you shared with us, or early September, Ed, that in your role as a criminal defense attorney, you have rarely, if ever, defended a Boy Scout. And that was a powerful thing that really rang with a lot of viewers. I remember some folks calling about that, and just the fascination of that experience, having represented so many folks. Why do you think that is, Ed?
It's clearly because of the values of the Boy Scouts. Here and anywhere in the country, and stills and the young kids. And it starts early with the Cub Scouts. And I'm a firm believer, and I understand this from practicing criminal law, you have to take a young person, whether it be a male or a female, and you have to get a we say in Darlington, you have to get a hold of them in their early years and when in their formative years. Because, you know, by the time somebody's 22, 23, 24 years old, it's too late to shape, well, it's harder, let's say that, to shape their values. And the Boy Scouts does such a wonderful, wonderful job. My middle son, Nathan, who I'm so proud of, and proud of all my children, his scoutmaster, he went out to Camp Philmont, and his scoutmaster was having a hard time carrying his pack. About 40 pounds. And Nathan just volunteered to carry his pack for him. And so he's a right strong kid. He carried both packs all the way up and all the way down. And wasn't asked. But scouting teaches the people to, if they see a need to do it, to not have to be asked. The virtue and the quality of right from wrong. And honesty and integrity. And you'll be surprised how many people that are card-carrying Eagle members. I didn't get to make Eagle. My oldest son has. Hopefully my others will. You know, still carry that card around. That means an awful lot to people that they've done that. Of course, you don't have to make Eagle to get a lot out of scouting. You can do less. But the values there are great.
Ed, we got 2 minutes, and I was thinking about that aspect after leaving as a 3-term president of the PD Area Council, and looking forward in the future, what do you perceive as some of the greatest pushes, some of the most critical needs for the PD Area Council of Scouting, as Alan Clemens, who was with us yesterday, and the rest of the council, including yourself, takes the PD Area Council forward?
Well, there has been some talk of a merger between us and Charleston's council. Well, when I joined scouting, they were talking about us merging because they said we were weaker with Columbia. I looked at the books and said, no, that's wrong. Well, now we're stronger, and we're the council to be merged with. So it's vice versa. And Camp Coker has been totally renovated. It's certified as a national training camp now. So it was virtually the same as when I was there 40 years ago before we did this campaign.
Think about that, all the years now in your practice of the law, Ed, and so many activities in your life. Of course, these years of service to the PD Area Council, the Boy Scouts. If you weren't currently practicing law, what do you think you'd be doing? I mean, it's incredible to think back, but having come straight back to Hartsville after law school, what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't practicing law?
If I wasn't practicing law, and it's sort of hard to get out of,
Yeah.
I'd probably my children are getting grown. I'd probably have me a very special, lovely lady, I would hope, in my life, and I would enjoy doing some ad hoc teaching in terms of trial techniques.
Oh, yeah.
Here at USC and other universities. I think that'd be fun. Just from pure raw experience, techniques that you use.
Absolutely. You could travel virtually anywhere for that.
Oh yeah, I could, and I've been thinking about that as I approach our time of age. I've got another good 10 years in me, I hope.
Absolutely. And lastly, when you think of those inspirations in your life from the early childhood, I think you've named a lot of those names. The excitement, of course, hearing you speak about your family stands out in your mind. If you were to pinpoint any folks that have had a dramatic impact in your life.
My father, obviously. My mother, who still has a good positive impact. I mean, for Mother's Day, I wrote, any woman can be a mother, but it takes a special woman to be a mama. And she certainly is. And then my wife, Donna, and my children and the way they act and react. I learn a lot from them. And I've been, God bless, more than I deserve. I've had a wonderful life.
You have, Ed. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve.
Definitely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Ed Saleeby Jr. coming up next. The memories of his mother growing up in Conway and his dad in Hartsville, the experiences of returning to Hartsville. You heard him talk about so many things, the Southern Candy Kitchen. You didn't hear him talk about losing 40 pounds, but that's something that's exciting to see. The excitement of helping raise his 3 boys and so many activities in his life, his service to the PD Area Council, the Boy Scouts. Ed Saleeby Jr. Thanks so much.